The first mystery within Frieren I would like to discuss concerns the death of the Demon King. The story intentionally has yet to answer how exactly the hero party defeated the Demon King. In fact, there are a lot of other mysteries and questions that open up that are related to this one. According to the great mage Flam, demons order themselves based on a hierarchy of strength, with the implication being that the Demon King was strongest of all the demons. Considering the massive influence and power the Demon King possessed, why didn't he battle the hero party with his full force of demons? The second in command of the Demon King's armies was Schlot the Omniscient, who was said to have been able to see 1,000 years into the future. Schlot himself knew that he would die fighting against the hero of the South who was able to kill 3 sages of destruction along with himself. Schlot died only 10 years before the Demon King, so why didn't he tell the Demon King of his upcoming death? Surely he would have told him, so why didn't the Demon King gather his remaining forces such as Qual and the remaining Sages of Destruction to wipe out the hero party? Qual alone proved overwhelming for the party and had to be sealed and dealt with at a later time. The other sages are implied to have fought the hero party one by one. Bose the Immortal was slain, along with Grousum the Miraculous. Aura was defeated, only to be finished off by Frieren long after the king's death. We know that despite the solitary, generally selfish nature of the demons, the Demon King was able to order them to do his bidding. Big spoilers incoming. In chapter 117 of the manga, it is revealed to us that the Demon King assembled a group of powerful demons to deal with Frieren, who had traveled back in time to the hero party's journey. The demons speculate that this was part of Schlock the Omniscient's plan. This implies that Schlock told the Demon King ahead of time that this would happen. So why was the Demon King willing to assemble powerful demons for this purpose, but not for the purpose of saving his own life? Was it some sense of pride, or was it for some other greater purpose? Either Schlock did not tell the Demon King he would die, despite being willing to tell him about the previously stated future event, or he did tell him and the Demon King chose not to do anything about it. In Chapter 7, when Frieren discusses Ende, she states, "It's where the Demon King's castle is right now." We then observe a large castle that is depicted as whole and mostly undamaged. The manga's depiction of the castle shows it with what appears to be slight weathering. The anime also depicts the castle as whole. While it is true that this could be how she remembered first seeing it, I believe it more likely, given the context of what she just said, that this is what the castle looks like right now. So how is this relevant to the Demon King's death? If the party of the hero fought the Demon King, wouldn't you expect the castle to be greatly damaged? The supposed strongest demon of all demonkind against the powerful hero party resulted in little to no damage to the structure? Did the demons repair the structure after the hero party left? We don't observe demons ever build any structures nor repair any, nor does it seem in their nature to do so. This has all been speculation, of course, but I believe the castle was originally created by humans, then commandeered by the demons later. So what does it all mean? My theory is perhaps the Demon King willingly allowed himself to die. Why would he do this? I believe he did this in accordance with Schlock's plan. Schlock's desire was for demonkind to prosper, and everything he did was in accordance with this plan. He was even willing to die for this plan, which is extremely unusual for a demon to be so selfless. Most demons don't care at all, as can be seen by Mach, Tot, and Solitaire. Perhaps the Demon King thought similarly to Schlock. We already know that the Demon King desired coexistence with humanity. Perhaps his death was the only way for coexistence to eventually occur. It would also explain his seeming lack of effort to prevent his own death, as well as the seeming lack of destruction of his own castle. What if he allowed himself to die? The second mystery I would like to discuss would be the general mystery that surrounds the goddess of creation. Similar to the previous mystery, this one opens up a multitude of other mysteries that are related to it. But first, let us talk about what we do know about the goddess and the lore that surrounds her. The goddess of creation is typically associated with heaven and of souls and is said to have created the world. Some describe the goddess as being omniscient and omnipotent. In Chapter 7, Frieren herself states that she is skeptical of both heaven and of the concept of a soul. With our current magic techniques, we cannot observe souls after death, so we can't prove their existence. Yet, when Frieren reads Flamm's notes, it states, "We are at the northernmost part of the continent. It's a place where many souls gather. I also conversed with my former comrades. This is the greatest discovery of the century, and I am sure it will help advance the research on souls dramatically." Frieren wonders if Flamm was exaggerating and remains skeptical. When Craft is introduced in the story, Frieren states that the goddess of creation has not shown herself in the world since mythical times. We learn in chapter 31 that the spells of the goddess are recorded in Holy Scripture, and only those who possess and own the Scriptures can use them. Occasionally, we observe priests physically open the Scriptures to cast magic, while other times they can cast magic seemingly without doing so. An example of this would be when Stark gets healed by Sign. We can assume, though, that Sign likely has a copy of the Scriptures on his persons. Not only this, but he is stated to be a prodigy, which may be a factor in why he doesn't need to open the Scriptures. Perhaps similar to mages and their use of staffs, priests utilize the Scriptures as a conduit for using the goddess's magic. It is also said that the goddess can bless people with the blessing of the goddess, which makes them resistant to curses. Interestingly, Frieren compares the magic of the goddess with the magic of demons in that their underlying principles are unknown, which is one of the reasons why she doesn't like to study it. In chapter 107, Frieren states that it was said that the goddess created and enchanted 10 monuments and left them throughout the continent. She states that none of the monuments were ever deciphered. Frieren explains to Fern and Stark that she once went on a journey to find one of these monuments. Despite the arduous journey to reach one, she discovers that she couldn't decipher it on such short notice and is forced to continue her journey. She notes that her memories of the monument faded away after a week, which implies magical interference. Naturally, Frieren wants to analyze the monument that she saw during the hero party's quest. When she eventually finds the monument with Fern and Stark, she notices that the monument has been destroyed and is inscribed with the words Fiala Toll. Despite this, Frieren still senses magic within the monument. Fern recognizes the words Fiala Toll as being a name from the scriptures, specifically from the chapter of the time-traveling bird. When Frieren touches the monument, she gets transported back in time to when she last touched the monument during the hero party's quest to defeat the Demon King. Frieren and the hero party goes on a quest to send Frieren back to the future. Eventually, they discover that the name inscribed on the monument was the counterspell, and Himmel asks not to be told what it is, so he can find it himself after his quest is over. Although it is not stated, he likely did this in order to prevent a time paradox concerning the finding of the spell. They return to the monument, only to encounter the demon kill squad that I previously talked about in the last mystery. However, they are successful in returning Frieren to the future. Frieren notes that the monument has lost its power, and the time travel arc concludes. Now, this arc introduces quite a few questions concerning the goddess. Why did the goddess create the monuments in the first place? Given the great power of time travel that was contained within the monument, it can be implied that the other monuments contain spells that have similar levels of power. If we make the assumption that the goddess is omniscient, then this implies that she made the monuments for a reason. I believe each of the monuments has a purpose, and when Frieren went to the past and returned to the present, the fact that it lost its power implies that the monument has served its purpose. What if the goddess created the monument with the sole intention of sending Frieren to the past? Why would she want to do this? If we think about it, nothing really changes in the story as a result of the time travel. All the historical events play out in the same way. The Demon King was still defeated. Frieren is still on a quest to Oriel with Fern and Stark. There is, however, one interesting thing that changes as a result of sending Frieren to the past. When the demons tried to stop Frieren in the past, Grausum the Miraculous was able to read Frieren's mind concerning the future, which was an important part of their mission. In the previous chapter, Solitaire mentioned that Grausum was able to survive in any era by altering his form to slip past the gazes of mankind. Although he was reportedly killed later on by the hero party, I believe this is a Chekhov's gun situation. Why mention his ability to survive via deception if it wasn't going to be relevant in the story? I believe that Grausum survived by faking his death, and that what he saw will be an important plot point later in the story, and that this was the outcome that the goddess wanted. Why? Only time will tell. In chapter 25, we learn that the sword of the hero was allegedly bestowed upon humanity by the goddess, and that it is embedded in holy ground near the village of the sword. No hero in history has ever been able to budge it even an inch when they try to pull it out. It is revealed to us that even Himmel himself was not able to pull the sword out. Frieren reveals to us that monsters have an irresistible urge to destroy the sword and are terrified of it. Considering that demons are drawn to the sword, we can conclude that the sword does contain some kind of power to it and is not fake in the sense that it is a powerful sword. Similar to the goddess monuments, if we assume that the goddess was the one who created and planted the sword there, then she likely did it for a reason. The reason for the sword's existence is a little more obvious than the monuments, however. The goddess likely intended for a hero to use the sword to defeat some antagonist to humanity at some point in the future. So, why wasn't Himmel able to use the sword? The simplest answer is that it was not meant for him in his quest to defeat the Demon King. Himmel himself proved that he did not need the power of the sword to complete his quest. But there may be a threat in the future that will require the sword's power to defeat. Else, what would be the point of the goddess planting the sword in the first place? Some speculate that it will be Stark who is the one destined to use the sword, as he did not even try his hand at removing it. However, I disagree with this theory. For one, it doesn't make sense logistically in the sense that the party is moving north to Ende. Why would they backtrack for a sword that they already passed? If they do encounter the sword again, it will be when the journey is completed and they are returning home, at which they wouldn't have a use for the sword anymore. Second, there is no current known threat in the world that would necessitate the use of the sword. Lastly, Stark fights with an axe like his master before him. It doesn't make sense for him to ditch his master's teachings of the axe in favor of the sword. I believe if the sword is ever utilized, it will be for a great calamity. Specifically, I believe that the sword of the hero will be utilized in the war between humanity and the demons, which Schlock predicted would reach its climax in 1,000 years. Despite what I previously stated about the spells of the goddess being written in scripture, it should be noted that this is a bit misleading. Within the time travel arc, Hyder explains the concept in more detail. He states that the scriptures are actually a compilation of tales from the mythical era as well as precepts made by the goddess. He states specifically that the tales from the mythical era portion of the scriptures form an extensive cryptogram that conceals the means to cast various spells of the goddess. Heiter goes on to state that mankind has been slowly deciphering the scriptures over time, and that some priests dedicate their lives to this task. He predicts that only 3% of the spells in the scriptures have been discovered, and that recently the three spears of the goddess was uncovered, as well as Uncurse Awakening. Interestingly, he tells us that it's been 1500 years since the earth was blessed with the holy scriptures of the goddess. So similarly to the monuments, the first thought that comes to mind is why? Why are there spells hidden in cryptograms within the scriptures as opposed to just being stated directly? Perhaps the goddess wanted to help humanity by giving them spells, but intentionally made the learning process artificially slow via a cryptogram, so humanity wouldn't be overwhelmed by the immense power that the spells provide. After all, we saw the ridiculous power of time travel, which breaks the law of irreversibility. In other words, the goddess's magic is so powerful it breaks the natural laws of the world. Perhaps the goddess didn't trust humanity to not destroy themselves if they wielded such power too quickly. Of course, this is assuming that the goddess even wrote the Holy Script to begin with. Did the goddess write the scriptures and give them to mankind only 1500 years ago? Was the Holy Scripture discovered 1500 years ago in a tomb somewhere? Or maybe did some holy man get divine inspiration to write the scripture as dictated by the goddess? We simply don't know the answer because there isn't enough information to make a conclusion. The only thing we can really assume is that it was likely a singular author, or at least a team of authors working together, that created the Holy Scripture. The fact that the Tales portion of the Scripture is entirely encrypted with spells implies a singular author encrypted it with that goal in mind, as opposed to a multitude of separate authors working independently. Additionally, the fact that the Scriptures are only 1500 years old also introduces a lot of questions. This doesn't really make sense, as Frieren herself is over 1000 years old, and Kraft is likely much older than this, as he directly calls Frieren young and talks about the existence of a demon king as if it was a trivial thing, implying that there have been multiple demon kings over the years. My question is, why would someone like Kraft believe in the goddess if the Holy Scripture is only 1500 years old? To make an analogy, that would be like if the entirety of the Bible was made in Kansas 10 years ago. Would you believe it? Oh, wait, I guess the modern day example would be the Book of Mormon. Without the mystique and authority that comes with age, most people wouldn't believe such claims. This makes me think that the knowledge of the goddess of creation existed prior to the existence of the Holy Scriptures. It's interesting to note that the statue we see of Kraft and his partner, we observe that his partner carries a book with him that is likely the Holy Scripture, meaning that the statue would have been manufactured sometime after 1500 years prior to the current timeline of the story. Perhaps it was this priest that evangelized the goddess to Kraft and made him a believer. Siri herself is directly compared with the goddess in terms of knowledge and power. If anyone knows anything about the goddess in the series, it would likely be Siri, especially if the scriptures were only written 1500 years ago. Sadly, she doesn't talk about the goddess at all, nor the scriptures, so we can only speculate as to what she knows. I have seen some theories that the goddess could have been an ancient elf whose tales were exaggerated over the course of time, similar to how Flam was changed to being a man, or how some of Himmel's tales of heroics were already exaggerated less than 30 years after his death. The goddess is also depicted with elven features, which could point in this direction as well. Some even theorize that this elf in question was Ciri herself. In the anime, Richter compares Ciri with the goddess, and a mural is shown with Ciri's hair, and she is depicted in the form of the goddess. However, I believe this is just a visual representation of Richter comparing the goddess with Ciri due to their similarly great power. Additionally, Ciri is not benevolent like how the goddess is depicted. I also do not agree with the elf theory for the following reasons. Like many fantasy stories, Frieren is heavily inspired by Tolkien in many ways. The idea of elves as being immortal, even the fading of the elven race over time, comes straight from Tolkien. I believe that, like the Tolkien universe, the elves were likely the first race of the world of Frieren. I believe it's not that the goddess looks like the elves, but that the elves look like the goddess, because they were either descended from her or created by her first. Also, the insane power that is associated with the goddess's magic that can even break the magical laws of the world, to me, is more indicative of a divine power than a natural one. Although there is a lot of unknown, unexplained magic in the world of Frieren, we don't observe anyone else display magic that straight up breaks the magical laws of the world. Another reason for the existence of the goddess would be the existence of the goddess's blessing that some people have. Why do some people have a predisposition for using the goddess's magic, as well as a natural resistance to curses? Is this just a coincidental byproduct of evolution that got named the goddess's blessing with no direct relation with her? Or is she directly blessing these people? The fact that those with the blessing have both an affinity for the goddess's magic and resistance to curses implies that these two advantages are correlated in some way. If it was solely evolution that was causing this phenomenon, you would only expect the resistance to curses to arise, as curses have existed and influenced humanity for likely the entirety of human history. You wouldn't expect affinity for the goddess's magic to occur so quickly, especially if the goddess's magic is only 1500 years old as derived from the age of the Holy Script. That is not a lot of time for the process of evolution via natural selection to occur, to even create those with an affinity towards the goddess's magic, especially for both advantages to occur together for those who are blessed. It's possible, but unlikely. Also, and probably the simpler answer, is that Sign's brother did not have the blessing as well, which suggests it is not likely to be evolutionarily derived, unless the blessing somehow skipped him, which is a possibility. I only mention evolution within Frieren, as it is directly referenced multiple times throughout the series, such as the evolution of demons to hunt humans, as well as the process of convergent evolution being described. So we know that the process of evolution exists within Frieren and can be applied to other situations such as the one that I described. This phenomenon of the blessing remains unexplained if the goddess was simply an ancient elf who passed down her knowledge, unless she somehow influenced the biological evolution of humanity as well, or was at least able to figure out a way to bless certain people long after she left the world. All of this seems to suggest that the blessings of the goddess are actual blessings that are given to these people, as opposed to some natural advantage as a result of evolution. The last argument I have for the existence of the goddess lies in the narrative of the story itself. It wouldn't make much sense for Freeman's journey to Oriel, the land of souls, to be pointless. Her desire to meet all those she had lost, such as Himmel, Heiter, and Flam, would be ended anticlimactically if heaven and souls didn't exist. It would also render the faiths of Heiter, Kraft, and everyone else who believed in the goddess to be pointless as well. Like Heiter says to Frieren, I believe in the goddess because it's simply better that way. If you liked the video and found it interesting, please like and subscribe. Peace.